Welcome back, friends. And as we always want to do, as we start this episode of In the Trenches, is let you know what's going on MGoBlue Podcast. Conquering Heroes. A lot to talk about there. It's been a great series that we've had over the past couple of months. This Thursday, we're going to hear from men's golf head coach. That's Zach Barlow. And we're still efforting somebody from the newest national championship team here at the University of Michigan. That's the men's gymnastics team. If you missed it, I want to make sure you go back and listen to Fred Richard and Paul Judah. They joined us a couple of weeks ago. Very prophetic on what they were hoping to accomplish, trying to accomplish, and actually did end up accomplishing. And Paul Judah, more wins than just on the mat. For him as well. So congratulations to him and his fiance. She said yes. So I know he was very excited about that. Defend the Block. It will return on the 29th of this month with Trey Donaldson. And for more on that, I want to bring in my partner before we get to 7 from 77, Mr. Brian Bush.
Indeed. Really cool that Trey was willing to join me for Defend the Blocks. We'll have that. We'll have conversations with Vlad Golden, Will Cheddar, some of the women's stars who have already locked in their returns for next year, Silas Swords, Liv Olson, and I think someone who deserves a ton of attention on the women's side, Mila Holloway. Mm-hmm. She was as fun to watch as those other two and not nearly as highly ranked and as discussed, but we'll have conversations with all three of them as the spring goes on. But I'm very thankful that we have a shorter off season for basketball because that means things went really well. But we'll talk about it with Trey next week. But super classy, was willing to do it. Already have recorded that conversation. We'll share it with you on Tuesday, the 29th. But congratulations to men's gymnastics. Mm-hmm. John, you asked him, Paul Judah, what it would mean. And he said it would be right. And it was right for Michigan. And he was the one who sealed the deal. Someone who's had to deal with some pretty big-time pressure moments, and he delivered yet again last weekend.
Yeah, obviously with the Olympic medal that him and Frederick Richard share from their experience this past summer to the ultimate goal of winning a national championship, that was something that these guys had highlighted back in the offseason. And talked to us a few weeks ago about what it would mean and the fact that it was here in Ann Arbor, hosted here in Ann Arbor, and the last time they hosted here in Ann Arbor, they also won a national championship. So there's got to be a little bit of something to that for the hometown team. But it was fun. It was energetic. I've watched the final couple of events, and obviously they needed Paul Judah to come through at the very end, and he did. I know he wanted to stick the landing on that last one, but he did what they had to do to bring home a natty.
He stuck the landing on the engagement. So
yes.
It worked out great. All right, let's get into our 7 from 77. If you're joining us on the video side, be sure to check out Wednesday's edition of In the Trenches presented by Meijer. From an audio standpoint, John sits down with a head coach, Sherrone Moore. If you are listening on the audio side, we have a jam-packed video version. We have our streams every Tuesday here in the month of April. We've been on. We'll do kind of every other week and stagger it a little bit this off season before getting right back into the Tuesday live stream every week closer to the season. But we'll have all the NFL draft preview talk you would want. Potential landing spots for Michigan Wolverines who are draft eligible. John and my top 10 mock draft, all of that. So be sure, as we are in the college football, quote unquote, off season, we're still bringing you a ton of content. And of course, the spring ball realm ended for Michigan on Saturday with the spring game. Team Blue shutting out Team May's 17-zip. We'll break down some unit-by-unit observations, but John, your foremost takeaways from a Saturday at the Big House.
First of all, it was fun and way more fans than I thought would show up, especially with the weather the way it was. Saturday morning, it was raining in Ann Arbor. It was supposed to all dissipate at about 10. Game was supposed to kick off at 12:05. And there was still some sprinkles and some rain, but it was the most well-attended, no surprise. Everybody wants to see the quarterback and new quarterbacks, but it was the biggest turnout we've had for a spring game. I don't know the official numbers, but it's got to be in nearly a decade in regards to what they had a chance to see And so the energy was there. And I'm really glad, because how many times have I talked about the different environment of being not just, at Schembechler Hall, in Glick, or outside, but on Saturdays they would go over to the big house, they would practice, but there's no one there. So it doesn't change a whole lot now all of a sudden and I'm just estimating that there were 50 to 60,000 people there. It changes everything of the speed that the game is played at. It ramps up a little bit, and it tests how true your technique is, how your understanding of whether it's offensive or defensive, the scheme, what's being called at the line of scrimmage. And what I saw was the execution wasn't, it was a spring game, right? The execution wasn't always going to be perfect, but the fact was there wasn't a lot of pre-snap penalties. No, there was a delay of game, but there's a lot that was going on early in that with a young quarterback and Bryce Underwood. If that's the only hiccup that you have on a day like that, getting lined up, getting set, getting a play off, I thought that the X's and O's were taken care of before the snap. And that was one of my big concerns, is how they're going to operate the offense. Talked about it, I think it was last week. Special teams, getting on off the field, defense, substitutions, all of those different things were, I thought, operated at least at a decent level.
So number 2 on our 7 from 77, let's delve a little bit deeper into the quarterback performances. It was Bryce Underwood on Team Blue, the winners. He was 12 of 26, 187 yards. Of course, he was at 99 before that trick play to Jalen Hoffman at the end. Jaden Davis, 6 of 17 for 74 yards for Team Mays. Your thoughts on that duo, the only 2 quarterbacks who took snaps?
Yeah, for Jaden Davis, I still want him to continue to work on that release. It's still a little bit long. He brings that ball down too low. Got to get that ball up, get it out. And when his release is like that, sometimes you're going to be a little bit late on some throws. You're going to be late on some windows. We saw a little bit of that. But for him, I liked how he operated the offense. Guys getting set, operating, who's supposed to be where. Didn't have any issues with that for Jaden Davis's team, the Mays team. But for Bryce Underwood, you can't deny seeing the talent that's there. At the end of the first half, I know he was trying to make a play, but to just throw the ball up, obviously not on the same page as the receiver. In a situation like this, right, the stakes are very low. The consequences are low. I want him to operate every time he takes the field like it's 4th down in a national championship game. And once he masters that feeling and masters that situation, he'll take care of the ball, even if it's an inconsequential moment. You're always creating habits, and the habit can't be, well, this game doesn't matter, this practice doesn't matter, I'm just going to throw it up and see if we can make a play. There are situations, Hail Mary situations, and other times where, yeah, you're going to take those chances, but I want to see him have the understanding that every snap, every play, every time that the ball is in your hands, as Mike Hart used to say, that's the program. You've got to make sure that you take care of it. And I think it was 2 interceptions for Jaden Davis and 1 for Bryce Underwood. So obviously that's something that you got to continue to work on.
You mentioned the release. How challenging is it to impact the release like you want him and shorten it, make it more compact?
Oh, it's tough. I mean, he's been throwing a ball like this his entire life, and he continued to throw that ball that way last year. So it's another year of experience and another year of ingraining a bad habit. And it's not that he can't play quarterback with that. It just puts the ball at risk. It slows him up. He's going to be late on some things, and it's something that he's going to have to work on a daily basis. And it's not just, when I talk about a daily basis, you wake up, you throw some balls, and it's got to be perfect every time. In the afternoon, same thing. You throw some balls, it's got to be perfect every single time. You've got to ingrain those habits so that when you get into an environment, like a game time environment, you're at the big house, you don't revert. Your body doesn't do what it's just always done. You've got to train it to do something different.
Number 3 on our 7 from 77, the running back position plenty of stories right now, and not just through the spring game. Didn't see a ton of Jordan Marshall or Alabama transfer Justice Haynes, who figured to be at the top of that Michigan depth chart. Marshall 4 carries, not a whole lot of yardage. Haynes 5 carries for 51 yards. We learned while recording last week's podcast that Benjamin Hall transferring out. Bryson Kuzdal leading all rushers, 105 yards on Saturday, just 14 carries for him. And Michigan's already announced 2 transfer running backs in from UMass, C.J. Hester, from Princeton, John Volker. A lot to take in there at the running back position. What to you jumps to the top?
Well, I know 1A, 1B is going to be the dewbacks that you already talked about, Jordan Marshall and Justice Haynes. And I don't know what order they're going to be in. That's up for the coaches to decide, but they're really close. And, I mean, they do look like cooker-cutter backs when you've got them back there. One looks just like the other, and I think we're going to all be really excited about that production. But the one thing that we've known is that this is a team that really likes to have 3 backs. You never know what's going to happen throughout the course of the season, as we've learned with Donovan Edwards, with the hand that he had a couple of years ago, or Kalel Mullins. You're going to get nicked up. You might have a hamstring. You might have a bruised shoulder. You might have something that pops up, and you don't want to go into any game with just one dude. And so the emergence of another back is something that, whether it's Kuzdal or anybody else that's on the roster, Kuzdal obviously had the best game on Saturday. I liked his awareness. I liked his vision of being able to anticipate where defenders are coming from. I liked his timing on some of the runs, as well as some of the cutbacks he had when he had outside. And I really don't have much to offer on Hester or Volker. I just haven't had a time to look at any of their film. That'll be something that comes in the coming weeks over the summer.
Yeah, it's just shows you that Michigan knows it needs depth. What that will look like, we shall see. But definitely running back some fluidity for Michigan from 3 on. And as you mentioned, the RB3 spot at the University of Michigan is relevant. You will be a factor for this team. You hope not too big of a factor, because that might mean some issues up top, but you will play. All right, number 4 on our 7 from 77. What else stood out offensively, whether it was a 148-yard performance from tight end Jalen Hoffman? I thought there was a really nice grab by Donovan McCulley in traffic. And yes, John, I'll allow you to talk a little bit of offensive line, including the number 1 pick in the draft for Team Maize and Team Blue. It was Andrew Babalola.
Yeah, a little surprised that he was taken 1 overall. He's got,
he was going to play a lot. See, there's some strategy there.
Oh, there is.
True freshman, I mean, listen, we're not drafting for the upcoming season. You're drafting for that game. So longevity, John, it's key.
Yes, it is key. And I thought he performed pretty well. When we're talking offensive line, and I'll just start there since I want to. There are things that are going to happen in that environment that didn't happen here at Schembechler Hall, where it's a defender that's coming in, and this is a guy that is low on experience. Everything that happened out there, that's great film. Even the things that he did well, and he was pretty good in the run game, but the pass game, that's always where there's going to take a little bit more development. And Babalola has all the room for improvement. And I don't mean that he played bad. It means that his ceiling is so high because he's such a tremendous athlete. Once he gets another offseason, or at least this summer in the weight room, I think he's got a chance to really be a major contributor next year, which I'll talk about where some guys might be able to bump if that's the case. But whether it's understanding the situation, sometimes, when you're a young guy, you're going out there and you're focused on the play called, and you're not even looking at down and distance. You're not looking at, what's the importance of this run or this pass? What's it going to set up? What does it do for this defender? Where are they lined up? Linebackers, all that stuff. There's so much going on that he has no chance to take it in. So he was just simply out there as an athlete. And in that regard, I thought he played pretty well. Now, all of a sudden, you see a defender who, goes up the field 2 or 3 times on 2nd or 3rd and long situations. All of a sudden, he comes inside. That's an anticipation that you don't want to be guessing. There are cues, there are clues that you can use to pick up on some of those things and beat them to the step. So I liked what I saw there. Both offensive lines, I didn't think played to the level that we're going to need them to play. And thankfully, we don't have a game until the end of August. There's plenty of room for improvement. If Babalola can be a contributor at left tackle, I would love to see, because I thought that Andrew Sprague played really well at right tackle. We saw him in the bowl game. That would allow Evan Link to bump down to one of the guard positions. I think that's ultimately where he is going to be best served throughout his career, but also for this Michigan offensive line. You put him in there at either guard position. Now, all of a sudden, yeah, you're starting to talk about some road graders up front. I thought Greg Crippen played well. I was looking to see him be able to set an anchor. And, with the extra, 5-10 pounds he's talked about putting on, I thought he did a good job there. And, some of the other guys, Giovanni Alhadi played well. Afobe, again, first time being out there, inexperienced. And sometimes just playing as an athlete, when you take the context of what these guys are experiencing and how they're experiencing it, then you start to understand some of the mistakes that they made, the easy fix that it is. And, it's not until that you've built up some experience, it doesn't matter the position, where you can make those corrections on the field. Like, it happened, and now all of a sudden in your mind, you don't have time to figure out why that just happened or why you got beat or even why you were successful to be able to repeat that or to try and make an adjustment, because now all of a sudden next play is called, and that's where you've got to learn to make those corrections on the run, and that'll come with experience. Wide receivers. Yeah, I did like the catch by McCauley. I like the fact that he provides that big, tall target, 6'5", being able to get downfield. Same with Browder. And then you've got the speed guys of Fred Moore, Samaj Morgan, and company. I liked the play calling because they offered the opportunity to get downfield. Now it's a matter of getting on the same page. And whether it's quarterback and release, as we talked about with Jaden Davis, or it's just getting up to game speed for Bryce Underwood, and trusting your receivers to be where they're supposed to be, and throwing a ball before a guy is even open. You're throwing it to a spot. He's not there yet. He's got all the talent in the world. That'll happen. But I liked Chip Lindsey's offense and their willingness to be able to go downfield, test the defense, and trust the guys were going to be able to get blocks up front.
Number 5 on our 7 from 77. Let's switch to the defensive side of things. Just starting front 7. Want to keep this broad. Where did your eyes take you for defensive line, linebackers for Team Maize and or Team Blue?
Well, it was funny, and I've mentioned this before, but whether it was Trey Pierce, Rayshawn Benny, Damon Payne, Trey Williams, Ikawuna, Enoeta, like it was sometimes hard to tell who was in there because they're all cookie cutters. Like they're really good players. They all have similar builds, a little bit different here and there, but they all kind of are doing the same thing. And what I loved about this and in talking to the coaches is, while you may not have the top end talent that's going to be in this year's draft, you have 6 guys to rotate up front where there's no drop off from 1 to 2 to 3. And if you can divide up those reps, what we know Wink likes to do that, and use them in different ways. And we saw it last year when you had both Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, and Rayshawn Benny in there. You got 3 guys. Now, if you're going to go big up front in a rundown situation, or you just want to give a different look, you still have 2 units that you can rotate through there. So they're going to be fresh the entire time. Every time they're on there, they're going to be ready to rock and roll. I did like the pressure that I saw from the edges. Saw some nice rushes, saw nice use of hands. Dom Nichols got back there, and he's a guy that if he could play with some controlled aggression and just mature a little bit in regards to when he hits 110 miles an hour versus being able to understand his responsibilities and being disciplined, not allowing I want to make this play and sacrificing some of his responsibilities. I think this is going to be a really good defense, especially up front. I like the linebackers. I've talked about it. I think it's a very deep group. And to be able to use, we didn't see a lot of Jayshawn Barham, but to be able to use multiple guys. So whether it's, when you look at that, at the defense and the linebackers, look a lot at Jimmy Rolder. I think that's a guy that has really developed. It's taken some time, but he's really developed, and he can be a mainstay in there. And whether it's Jay Sean or it's Ernie, use them in different ways, knowing that you got a solid guy right in the middle. And I think he's developed into an NFL caliber player.
Yeah, I mean, Jay Sean Barham was not going to show off what versatility he might
Right.
display come late August and into September here this year. But I think this year defensively up front, the defensive line is going to be a little bit more, who is out there? Who made that run stop? And the linebackers are going to be the stars, which wasn't necessarily the case. It was reversed with the Graham Grant combination up front. When you have a 17-0 spring game with 3 interceptions, you're going to have some corners, safeties, guys in the secondary who made an impact. Couple of interceptions from Jeremiah Lowe, a pick from Tevis Metcalf. Your thoughts on the secondary on Saturday defensively?
Really solid. And it was now. Sometimes you can't tell. All right, well, is it still the right receivers that are developing, or is it just a high level of play from the secondary? I like the rotations that I saw, and this is without Rod Moore. Rod Moore we won't see him until the fall. But whether it was Mason Curtis, Brandon Hillman, Jaden Magnum, new to the defense, but the rotations. I like the communications in the secondary. I like the way that the corners were playing press. They were playing off. They changed things up. And they were always challenging the receivers. They were always right there. There was no freebies. And I am a big fan. And I've mentioned a number of times, I was hard on him last year. Big fan of the way that Zeke Berry has attacked this offseason, how he's accepting so many different roles in the secondary. Really excited about the year that we're about to watch him have.
I think Michigan's passing game might take a little bit of time to get going in the fall because you're going to have youth under center. You don't have a whole lot of proven productivity at the wide receiver position. But I think Michigan's secondary has a chance to do the same thing to opponents' passing game. Just the depth that Michigan possesses there, I think has a chance to be pretty darn special, and that's impressive considering what Michigan has lost over the last couple of years.
Well, and it was a great point that Jason Avant made in the first couple of weeks, having played against Wink at the NFL level, that and we talked about it with Will Johnson. Why isn't he on the field on this certain 3rd and long situation? He loves to rotate defenses and guys through, so they're always fresh out there. I already mentioned about the defensive tackles. When you have that ability in the secondary and you don't have a drop-off in execution, now, I mean, you're really going to be challenging the passing game for a lot of other offenses, but it's always that change-up pitch. It's Mason Curtis coming off the edge, Zeke Berry coming off the edge. And how can they do that when you've got this passing attack? Well, if you're always keeping that quarterback guessing and wide receivers can never seem to break free, you're not paying attention to where that extra rusher might be coming from. And we saw it when Mikey Sammer still was here. And I think we're going to see a lot of that this year.
Yeah, well, if we see anybody like Mikey Sammer still, it's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm not saying they play at that level. I'm just saying that opportunity
100%.
to impact games is there.
100%. Yeah, with you say it. You said it earlier. You said the ball is the program. The other one is the expectation is the position, and obviously Michigan has had a lot of expectation at that position.
You've been listening. I appreciate that.
Only took 507 episodes. Yes, the wisdom of Jon Jansen. All right, after that oxymoron, let's go into number 7 on our 7 from 77.
It's all right. I called you a dork a couple weeks ago, so I got to be able to take it as well.
Of course, yes. Yeah, that is also something that's been building for 507 episodes. That one's a little bit more well fostered, right? Yes. All right. We'll hear from Sherrone Moore on the audio version here in a bit. But as we wrap spring ball, 2-part question. 1, what are some of the areas that you have most obviously taken some knowledge from over the last, 5-6 weeks of spring ball, or areas of improvement? And then what are some of the biggest questions you still have? Of course, I think the quarterback spot, that's a given. Yeah. We're not going to know a whole lot beyond this between now and the start of fall camp. But what are some areas that you still want to talk to players, coaches, get some idea here as we get to a less knowledge-heavy part of the offseason?
It's going to be the passing game. I want to see, and this is going to be up to the quarterbacks to organize this, and the upperclassmen, offensively and defensively, as receivers, as skilled guys, defensively, the defensive backs, linebackers. This is a passing game that needs to continue to develop, and it's not rocket science. Wasn't great last year, and some of those components are there, but you got new pass throwers, and you've got a new play caller. Those plays are going to be called. And you've got to get that rhythm. You've got to understand exactly when McCauley is out for a pass. How's he running his routes? It's going to be different than when Fred Moore or Samaj Morgan runs it. That's what a quarterback has to understand. And you've got to build up that trust that I just mentioned. But it's also the trust that not the receivers are going to do what's asked of them. They're going to be making the same reads as the quarterback, always seeing the same thing. But then it's the protection, and you're not going to be able to have those moments with protection as well as receivers and quarterbacks working. But that offensive line has to continue to work with that front seven to develop the chemistry that they need. Now, there's going to be a lot of mixed match parts, and we don't know who ultimately that 5 is going to be up front. And there's still room. We have no idea what injuries may or may not happen. Development has to happen. But you've got to be on the same page. That communication up front, watching film, developing that is going to be vital to the success of this team.
2 follow-ups. 1, if you had to guess right now, who will be Michigan's leading receiver in 2025, who would you pick?
I would probably say Fred Moore. And I'd say that because I think he's going to get an opportunity for some big shots down the field. I like the way that he runs routes across the middle of the field. He runs precision routes, but I think he is the guy that is going to get the opportunity for big plays. And that might be what separates him from a Donovan McCauley, who has that ability as well, but he's more of a guy across the middle, 50-50 balls down the, on the edge, and if you ask me who's going to catch the most touchdowns as a receiver, I might tell you Donovan McCauley. But in terms of yardage, I think I would lean towards Fred Moore right now.
The other thing, I feel like what I am maybe not confident, but more confident in than not, is that I think we're going to go into August feeling the same way as last year, that the defense is going to have to be the unit that shoulders a little bit more of the load going into the early stages of the regular season. And that, I think, is 2 reasons. 1, where I feel like the depth chart is defense versus offense, but also the fact that Michigan's going to have to go to Oklahoma and Nebraska in the month of September. This isn't the long 5-game, home stretch. Michigan has 6 road games this year. And do I think Oklahoma or Nebraska will be contending for conference championships? No. But I do think that those environments are really unique, really challenging, with some coaching staffs on those sides they're pretty desperate. They got to show some progress. Yeah. I think that defense needs to travel there. At the same time, I feel like the upside of this offense compared to last year's is pretty significantly higher, even if the baseline of what I expect on August 30th is lower. Is that all fair?
Yeah, I think when you go on the road, especially to a place like Norman, Oklahoma, you're going to have to be led by the defense. And the defense that we saw against Alabama is in large part the defense that we're going to see against Oklahoma. And I like the development of Wink. There's a learning curve of him in calling college defenses and dealing with college athletes. So I think we saw that in the improvement of the defense last year. It played much better at the end of the season than the beginning. Part of that is the coach. Part of it's the message that being received by the players, the expectations that is on them for every play, every call. And so I think they understand him better as well. So yeah, I do think so. And then going to Nebraska, right? Did you hear? I think they installed a wailing wall for all those crying kids. That's new since we were there the last time. Because they've all been
last time I was in Lincoln
through those historic arches.
Yeah, the last time I was in Lincoln, I watched a football game, but it was at Pinnacle Bank Arena. it was 49-46 Michigan basketball. So I didn't see the wailing wall, but
it's there. It's
offensive basketball fans were wailing on both sides.
Yeah, that's there. What's painful?
Oh God,
there's no question.
I mean,
it was painful.
You want to talk about trying to put lipstick on a pig? Holy cow! Of all the games I've called, that sure was one of them. All right, pivot time on the audio side. Great conversation with the head coach, Sherrone Moore. On the video side, I almost said Dusty May there because we were talking basketball, but Sherrone Moore is our audio guest coming up on Wednesday. Can't wait to bring that to you. Some great stuff, some thoughts with Jon Jansen and the second-year head coach. Of course, there'll be plenty of time to talk about the storyline of Sherrone going back to Norman. Can't wait for you to have to ask that on the radio show. And remember a couple years ago, you asked him to sing the Oklahoma fight song. I'm really glad he said no, considering this game coming up. That probably would have. What's the word for things that weren't around for that resurfaced? Yeah, this audio resurfaced.
Yeah, you know what? Depending on how that game goes, that Monday Night Coaches show after that game might be the opportunity that we hear the pipes of one Sherrone Moore. I'm just saying the opportunity will present itself if the outcome is as we expect. And because we've heard Jim Harbaugh sing, and we know Sherrone Moore, one of his great mentors, is Jim Harbaugh. So he may have to actually succumb to the pressure that will be applied in that moment.
I think the Jim Harbaughism that Sherrone Moore will keep will probably be, oh, there was an injury for insert player. He's working through something. I think that will be the tradition upheld and not the singing part. Yes. But Jim Harbaugh might come up in this conversation here in a little bit as we pivot to the NFL draft. A couple of things that popped up during our 7 from 77. Tim asking, do you think Michigan should go back to doing ones versus ones during the spring game for at least a half? What's your takeaway on that?
I would love to see that. That's going to be always the best work, the best development. And so, I mean, if I was, king of the world and I was the one that was, or head coach of Michigan football, both are similar. I would want those guys to go one-on-one, but the way that they have it set up, I mean, we talk about the draft and Babaloa is the first draft pick. Like, you're not going to be able to create that situation if that's the way you want to go. It still needs to be fun for the players. You want to make it fun for the fans. It also needs to be developmental for these guys. So I can tell you this, because the spring game is one of 15 practices, and the first couple of practices are non-padded. So basically you're down to 12 practices. And I saw each and every one of those, and I know that during those practices, there were good on good, ones versus ones. And then there was also opportunity for twos to go versus ones, because you got to make those guys better. They got to know exactly what level they got to get to. But I think that would be a lot of fun to see those guys going 1v1.
And then Aaron just saying that the weather really did. It was not great early, but got to a point. You're talking mid-April in the state of Michigan.
It was good. Yeah, it was good. It wasn't sunny. We didn't have to worry about getting sunburned out there. It was 55, 60 degrees. It was perfect.
All right. So let's talk NFL draft. I tasked John with a top 10 mock draft at this point. I did not specify. Ooh, wow. Nope. Highlighter, different colors.
Yeah. Oh, that's for a different thing. But yes.
We got Jon Jansen's big board up there. I'm guessing all the non-highlighted players were all the offensive linemen. I assume you have 10 of the top 15 or so. Then your first quarterback is 20th, something like that.
There's not a first-round quarterback in this draft, but there will be some drafted in the first round.
Yes. I did not specify if this is what you think will happen or what you think should happen. How did you do it?
Oh, I think as I think will happen.
Great. Me too. I figured as much. So let's go your top 5, my top 5, and then we'll do 6 through 10. Give me, I assume you have Cam Ward at number 1, right?
I do.
Okay.
I think Tennessee, even though they got Will Levis there, Will Levis will be on the trade block. He could be a decent number 2, but they were so bad. They have to at least take their shot on a quarterback and see if Cam Ward is the guy. We've seen Arizona go back-to-back drafts, taking a quarterback in the first round. Because of the way it's set up, you're not locked in. and you can admit an error and take a quarterback again next year if you end up picking in the top, 1 or 2 again. So I think they go Cam Ward. They take their shot there. Cleveland goes Travis Hunter. I think they go with the multi-faceted talents of one Travis Hunter because they already have a pretty damn good pass rush. But I think that they need help in the secondary. So they go Travis Hunter. They could use help on offense too. And the 3 with the New York Giants. I can't believe Abdul Carter's still on the board. I think he's the best football player in this draft, but he goes to the Giants. New England goes offensive line. They spent a lot of money in free agency, had a lot of money to spend. The one area that they still need to continue to improve is up front. And so I'm going to go Will Campbell, the offensive lineman from LSU. He's the first lineman off the board. And then our guy, Mason Graham, number 5, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Okay. So I would say we could go through mine, but I agree. Though I feel like don't you feel like that's it's a little bit strange that we're sitting here recording this on Tuesday morning, and it feels like really the top 4, according to draft experts, according to you, yes, separating you from the experts. But also, I mean, odds makers basically all have the top 4 basically solidified. There is some fluidity to Mason Graham to Jacksonville at 5. I believe that to be a smokescreen. I believe that to be Jacksonville not wanting someone to move up to maybe 4, because I think New England has more of a chance to move down, because I do believe there's some offensive line depth at the top. I'm not saying they're going to move down to 30 or something. If there is a most likely spot to change in this top 5 group, where do you think it is? Is it New England?
Yeah, I would say New England, because of the money I talked about them spending in free agency. They addressed a lot of needs, and what they need now is, when those contracts come due, is some cheap talent. And you're going to get these guys for 5 years with that 5th year option. And if you jump down to 7 and say the Jets go up there because Aaron Glenn wants to address the defensive line, they want to keep that as strength. If they want to get Mason Graham at 4, I could see New England jumping down to 7. Or, I mean, just pick which team you would want, that would want to jump up to 4. I think that's the most likely candidate to want to get more picks, more draft capital than anybody else.
So we have the same top 5 as of now. So who is your number 6 pick? We'll just go pick by pick here, because it did feel like this had a chance to be chalk. Where do you think the Raiders go at 6?
I think the Raiders go with Ashton Jeanty. They go off the board and they take a running back, because it's a Michigan guy that's the GM. He knows the importance of the run game, and they need to be able to have something that they can hang their hat on. Being able to pick up first downs is going to be vital for this team in Vegas. And so I look at it and say, I think they probably go running back. Ashton Jeanty's the best one of the bunch. And so I know it may be a little bit off the rails, but hell, it's the Raiders.
Jeanty is right now the expected selection at 6, though he is also right now pretty even as the potential pick at 5. I agree with your theory about focusing on the run game, but I think this is where we go a little off the beaten path. Armand Membu, who I think is a candidate to be the number 1 overall offensive lineman. From what I've read, I don't know much about Missouri offensive line play, I must admit, but from what I've read, he might have the highest upside and maybe the best good tape of anybody in the draft. He also, I think, is a little bit spotty. There's some inconsistency. It just sounds like this is a draft where a lot of teams need offensive line, and there isn't a ton of top line depth. Everything we've heard is that outside of the top quarterback that's always going to get pushed up, there are two blue chippers in Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, depending on how you break it down. You think Abdul Carter, do you think it should go Carter 1, Hunter 2? Do you agree that those are the top two overall prospects in this draft, or do you differ with Hunter at 2?
Oh no, I think that's 1-2. And you could argue 2-1, 1-2, whatever you want. I don't care. But those are the two top talents in this draft.
Yep. After that, if you do have a lack of blue chippers, wouldn't you try to focus if you could, if all else were equal up front?
Sure. And I don't have a problem with that. And here's the issue is whether it's Will Campbell or Membu, insert any other offensive lineman. I'm not sure that there's a true offensive tackle, a stud tackle in this draft. I think a lot of these guys, they're going to try them out at tackle and see if something hits, or they may just by default have to play tackle for a few years. They're all going to eventually be guards. And I just don't see the top talent being there. And I think 6 is certainly where you could say 5 with the Jaguars, where this draft starts. And things could get off the rails with Jacksonville. Who knows where they go, or if they stay there, or do they want more capital as well? And they actually trade out. But the top, 4 guys in this draft, 4 picks, are really, I think, pretty solid. And then once you get to 5 to 35, I don't know that there's a huge discrepancy in talent. Yeah. If you're going to pick 6, or if you're picking 28 like the Lions are, I'm not sure that there's a huge drop off in talent. There's some good players. I don't know that there's true first round talent in this draft.
Agreed. So who's number 7, which is where the Jets draft?
I've got the Jets taking your guy, Membu. If he makes it past Vegas, the Jets take him. Aaron Glenn knows that he's got to solidify that offensive line. And if they don't jump up to take one of the defensive guys, I think it would almost be criminal if they don't improve that offensive line.
So I am in agreement with offensive line. I think remember, the start of the Lions build was Penei Sewell. And I think we're going to see offensive linemen keep growing. I got Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. I think he goes 7. I think that potentially the Jets are maybe that candidate. If it weren't the Patriots at 4, it could feel like the Jets could try to move up for that. But interdivision or intra-division trading is more frequent now. I have a hard time believing it's going to happen with the Jets and the Patriots.
Yeah, that division doesn't seem like there's any phone calls that are answered if the caller ID comes up within the division.
No,
we see it in other places. So obviously, we've seen Detroit and Minnesota consummate some trades, but it is more common now. I just don't feel like, I think there's some animosity there.
Yeah. Number 8, the Carolina Panthers. This one to me is fascinating. Where would you pick this one to go?
They need to go edge. And I know there's a couple of edges from Georgia. The one I think is best served in Carolina is Mikael Williams. I know he was banged up last year. Numbers didn't necessarily say that he's a top 10 guy. But again, I go back to 5 through 35, I think are all very similar. And I think the traits of him playing through some injuries, being willing to make that sacrifice and go out there and still playing solid, but not putting up the eye-popping numbers. I think Mikael Williams goes 8 to Carolina.
I do think that would be the desired pick. I'm going a little off the beaten path again. I think the Panthers go Tet McMillan. He feels like he could go 5. He could go 25. I'll go with, hey, they saw some glimmers of hope with Bryce Young. Mm-hmm. How can you add a big receiver? Though there was some reports that obviously he's gotten a lot of traction locally that maybe Jamison Williams could be a potential trade option by the Lions. There was a report. I think it was Albert Breer had that report. So JMO with the Panthers would make a ton of sense. But if that doesn't happen, I think this is, good luck guessing this one. This is where it really could go off the board.
Are you giving me the number 8 pick for, and I'll give you 28, JMO?
No, I don't think that's no. I think it's probably a 3rd, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, so the 3rd is a minimum for JMO because if they pick up his 5th year and he ends up leaving after 5, their compensatory pick will be 5. So unless somebody comes and says, hey, we're going to give you a high 3 or we'll give you a 2, you just say thank you for call and just stop wasting our time.
Yep.
I would be interesting. Ted McMillan, I think, is, to me, by far the best receiver in this draft. And we did this thing in the morning, like, which player do you think could be wearing a gold jacket when it's all said and done, 15, 20 years down the road? I think Ted McMillan has that type of talent. He could be a Hall of Fame talent. I think his speed combined with just his catch radius and elite hands make him very attractive to a lot of teams, and he's going to get a lot of targets as a rookie.
Interesting. Yeah, I think you're right. I think his range of outcomes in the league is about as wide as where he could go in the first round. Again, for what it's worth, the Panthers don't have their original second-round pick. They have the 25th pick of the second round. Maybe that is a potential option with maybe the Lions throwing in a later round pick to have it be a really big trade up. Number 9 pick owned by the Saints. John, where do you go here?
Even though I think it's a bad pick, I think they go quarterback because we heard David Carr might be out for this year, shoulder issue. They're going to have somebody take snaps, and I think Shedeur Sanders is maybe the best next option. So I think he ends up in New Orleans.
This is where I have it going wild because everybody has, if Ashton Jeanty gets to 10, Ben Johnson and the Bears will take him. I agree that I do think the Saints are interested in a quarterback, and I think they're interested in a quarterback in the first round. I think that quarterback will come at 20. I have the Broncos trading up and getting Ashton Jeanty, allowing the Saints to trade back. New world order, new head coach, worst cap situation in the NFL. They need controllable young assets, and they need to find a quarterback. I don't think they want to spend it at 9. And I got a feeling Denver wants to. I feel like Denver's a really sneaky AFC. They are the type of team that it feels like moving up for a running back, one who people think is close to generational. It fits there more than with the Raiders at 6 to me.
I'd be a fan favorite just because of location in Denver, but for that offense, the way that they want to operate, that would be an absolute home run if they're able to get up there. Plus, if Ashton Jeanty is still on the board at 9, if Denver trades up, I couldn't be happier for Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears.
So you do not want the Bears to draft Jeanty?
No, I don't. No, I don't want him in division. I think he's a really good football player. And I don't want Ben Johnson to have any more weapons than he has.
Well, then you might hate who I have at 10. Who's your 10th pick to the Bears?
Well, since Ashton Jeanty is already gone on my board, he went to the Raiders. And in your situation, I think he goes to Denver. I've got Tyler Warren going to the Chicago Bears. And do I think he's a better tight end? You could argue between him and Colston Loveland as to who is a better tight end. I think with the style of offense that Ben Johnson wants to play, and he loves his trick plays, he loves being creative. When Penn State was at its best in the last half of the season, they found very creative ways to use Tyler Warren, and I think that he fits exactly what Ben Johnson's looking for.
Right position, wrong player, John.
Oh, you're such a homer.
No, I believe Colston Loveland is the best tight end prospect in this draft.
I agree. But I think Tyler Warren provides some wrinkles we never saw from Colston Loveland.
Do you think
we did, but it was against TCU and that didn't go well.
I wore that quarter zip that you get for the media one day, and this was after the championship run the next year. And like, why do you want to bring that game up? It's like, you know what? That set the tone. If that doesn't happen, I don't think Michigan wins the title the next year. That's my only. And it's also I like the logo, but yes, let's not bring that up. Other than that,
yeah.
Let me ask you this: you can't just get into comparisons. What Ben Johnson in Chicago, what Aaron Glenn in New York, is trying to build is not going to just be Detroit Lions Part 2, right? It can't be. Is Sam Laporta more Tyler Warren than Colston Loveland?
Oh, he's more Colston Loveland. And I don't disagree. That's why I said I think he's the best tight end in the bunch. But I think there are things that Tyler Warren can do outside of being a tight end that Ben Johnson's going to fall in love with.
Totally get it. I do think that Cole Kmet still can be a valuable piece for the Bears, and I think that Colston Loveland fits more as if you have a guy like Kmet who can do maybe a little bit more of the dirty work. I don't know. There's been a lot of whispering around Colston Loveland going higher than most people think, and if you're asking me, and I think there are certainly some warts in any Wolverine case, because no Michigan player is going to go number 1 or number 2 or number 3.
We don't think.
No. Well, true. If you're asking me who has the best chance to overperform, both in terms of where people think he's going to get drafted to where he does get drafted, and where he does get drafted to where he finishes, I think in this first round it might be Colston Loveland. He is 3-year. He left after 3 years. He wasn't in an offense that had a whole lot of ability to push the ball down the field. When they did, it was him. We'll see. But I got a feeling that Colston's going before Tyler Warren.
Could be. I hope so.
Yeah.
I certainly hope so.
So obviously I have Mason Graham to the Jags. I've got Colston Loveland to the Bears. Where do you have Colston Loveland if you had to pick right now? Where is he going? What pick?
So I have him down for 2. If Ben Johnson, like you said, loves him, it's either Chicago or it's Indy at 14. I don't think he makes it past 14. In both cases, you're trying to give a young quarterback a target that they can grow with for their entire career. And Colston Loveland is a guy that he does a really nice job of reading defenses, finding those nooks and crannies to just give a good target to a quarterback. And they certainly need it in Indianapolis, and they could use it with the Bears as well. So I don't think he gets past 14.
Yeah, I think I agree. In terms of Will Johnson, where do you have him going?
I've got him 16 to Arizona.
There it is. Well done. I agree.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, look at us. Look at us.
Show's over. We agree. They're looking for better help in the secondary. They love their corners. They need somebody that's a playmaker back there. If he could stay healthy, he's going to be one of the great values in this draft. And it's hard to say that a pick 16 would be a great value. He's got the talent to be a top 5 pick, but there's just those questions about his durability.
Kenneth Grant, do you agree with me that he will be a gift from the NFL draft gods for Jim Harbaugh at 22?
Nope.
Really?
Nope. I don't have him going there. But I do have him going to a Harbaugh, and that would be 27. And it will do nothing more than infuriate me if he is on the board at 27 and he is taken by one John Harbaugh instead of dropping to the Detroit Lions at 28. I think he is there's going to be a learning curve, and there's no better defense to get into than the one that it wasn't a great defense last year in Baltimore. They don't want to address it. They want to address the pass rush, and Kenneth Grant's the guy that they can stick in there. He'll be productive as a rookie, but years 2, 3, and 4, look out. He could be dominant.
If people in the NFL are as in the belief that Jim Harbaugh will take a former Wolverine, keep 21 in mind, because that's where the Steelers are. I'm not saying for the Ravens. This would be unlikely for a Baltimore-Pittsburgh trade. But Pittsburgh does not have a second-round pick. And if you do think that if Colston Loveland falls, Will Johnson falls, Kenneth Grant falls, and you want to get one of those guys and beat Jim Harbaugh to the punch, I would look at 21 as a very possible situation. To me, Pittsburgh at 21 and then Minnesota at 24, because the Vikings, I think they only have 4 picks. Those are prime trade-up spots, whether it's a quarterback or at 21 trying to get around Harbaugh for a Wolverine.
Schefter had this the other day. This is as close as we've gotten to the draft without one of the number one picks and the first round picks being traded.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I think it was 93, and that was the Montana trade.
Yep.
That was 3 or 4 days before the draft. And here we sit a mere, I don't know.
2 days, 8 hours, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like 50 hours.
Yeah. Crazy. So how about quarterback predictions? Cam Ward's going to Tennessee at 1. Where do the other so you have Shedeur going to New Orleans, correct?
Yeah, I do.
I think Jackson Dart is the target for New Orleans. Again, just reading some of the tea leaves, Kellen Moore, the new head coach there. I don't know. I don't think the Saints should take Jackson Dart or Shedeur Sanders at 9. Will they? That's another story.
Well, I like the idea of New Orleans trading out of that 9 spot, getting down. And I mean, Shedeur Sanders, is it some great find to get him in this draft? No. Is it going to be some great find to get Jackson Dart? I think there's a lot of teams that are pumping up Jackson Dart because they're hoping somebody will bite after the combine. But I think he's 2 years away from actually starting in the NFL. I mean, just being able to read defenses and process all of the information, reading the whole field, seeing the entire field, unless Kellen Moore believes he's just that good of a teacher and coach that he can get him from where he was at Ole Miss. And I know he had a lot of production and there's a lot of natural ability there. That has nothing to do with being able to read NFL defenses. It's a completely different language and it is a completely different look. So, God bless anyone that takes Jackson Dart in the first round because there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, you're right about that. Jackson Dart's probably 2 years away from when he should be starting. But we just saw last year, I mean, when Michael Penix got drafted, we were all sure he wasn't going to play for 2 years because they just signed Kirk Cousins. He was, at that point, the 5th quarterback off the board, maybe 4th. He was 4th because then it went JJ and then Bo Nix. And he still started down the stretch last year, and he's going to be their starter this year. So I agree that's probably what should happen for Dart, for Milroe, for Sanders, for Tyler Shuck, even though he's approaching 26 years old. I don't think that means that's what's going to happen.
Well, Michael Penix ended up starting because their starter forgot which team to throw the ball to. And, I mean, I don't think their intention was that he was going to be.
But who is the Saints quarterback? Spencer Rattler?
Again, I don't know.
A lot of bad options.
There are a lot of bad options. And then you start looking at the rest of the draft. And, okay, so I think I maybe presented this to you last week. You put any of these quarterbacks in last year's draft, are there any first-round quarterbacks?
I think Cam Ward goes in the first, but I think he's probably I think he's around Bo Nix.
Right. And so then you look at Shedeur Sanders, you look at Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Will Howard, Tyler Shuck. I mean, go down the list and it just keeps getting worse. I don't know that there's a franchise quarterback in there. So when we start talking about these other quarterbacks, are you going to take one? If you don't take one in the first and you get that 5th-year option, that extra year of development and that extra year of control, there might not be another quarterback taken until the 3rd round.
So I want to pause that for a second. So you have Shedeur going to the Saints at 9.
Yeah.
Is Dart a first-round pick for you?
No.
Is Jalen Milroe a first-round pick for you?
No.
Who do you think Dart and Milroe go to?
I think Jackson Dart ends up going now. I mean, again, the Saints pick 40. And if they are looking at, hey, we want to develop a quarterback, we know it's going to take some time. We don't want to go in with Spencer Rattler. I think that's a great landing spot for either Dart or Jalen Milroe. Yeah. And the Jalen Milroe is kind of interesting because he's not a first-round talent that can come in and you would expect to play right away. But I know there's a lot of GMs that are just enamored and a lot of quarterback coaches enamored with his upside. And somebody may sit there and think, you know what? He was underutilized and I can make him a superstar. I guarantee you, one of 32 NFL coaches is thinking that right now, and maybe multiple coaches. So, do I think he ultimately ends up going in the first round? No, but I think whether it's 40 to New Orleans, I mean, I wouldn't rule out Indianapolis taking a shot at another quarterback in the second round because I don't think they like what they have at all. And I just the Chargers may take a stab at a quarterback, one that they can develop because they don't need him to start this year. Probably don't need him to start next year.
Yeah.
And can you get a guy like a Milroe or a Jackson Dart? I think Jackson Dart would be a perfect fit to be a backup to Matthew Stafford.
Oh, to the Rams, you're saying, not the Chargers.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, not the Chargers.
Yes, okay. I was about to say that's why I was got it. Oh, hey, don't put past Jim Harbaugh.
Oh no, Jim Harbaugh's in love with his quarterback.
But the Los Angeles method doesn't quite have the same ring as the Michigan method. I think Shedeur Sanders goes to the Giants. I think there's a genuine battle, not to take him at 3, but to maybe explore trading down and taking him later in the first. I think they'll end up taking him with their second selection, whether that's at 34 or moving up in the back of the first round, which I learned through somebody that doesn't happen as much as you think, where there's a trade up into the first round to get that 5th year of control. Because anymore, these guys get thrown out there so quickly that you kind of know one way or the other if you're going to pick up that 3rd-year or that 5th-year option. To me, I think the 5th-year option is more valuable for a guy like Jalen Milroe, who he might be more of that Lamar Jackson style, where I'm not saying as a player, I'm saying in terms of revamping your approach to offense, revamping your style. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I've thought about the Browns with Milroe, but Kevin Stefanski has not really had a lot of he's had more of the pocket passing type. So you kind of throw in Jackson Dart there. I'm not really sure, but so you think what? 2 quarterbacks go in the first round? Do you think it's just Shedeur and Ward?
Yeah, I do. I would be pretty surprised if there's another quarterback. I really would. And I think there's just a lot of smoke around Jackson Dart because there's a lot of teams that, even though the high end talent's going to be off the board in the first 3 or 4 picks, there are guys that teams will look at and say, you know what, I really want an edge, or I really want an offensive lineman, even though it may not fill the exact need I have. There are certain teams with tremendous needs, and you could play off, hey, this is best available at this time, and it's only going to happen if there's a run on a certain position, or even if one extra player goes above them, like a Jackson Dart. So that's why I think you're hearing a lot of a buzz around Jackson Dart.
Our guy Moose with Graham at the Jags at 5, like we have. I do think Will Johnson to San Francisco is very much live. I do wonder, I think San Francisco will be one of the few teams that might really explore trying to move up for Abdul Carter if a Cleveland at 2 or a Giants at 3 wanted to move down. But yeah, I think that's very possible. Kenneth Grant to the Bengals would be pretty fascinating at 17, and then Colston to the Chargers at 22.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if Will Johnson's available at 17, I could see the Bengals taking him there. Their defense was terrible last year, and they haven't seemed to want to move anybody defensively yet. But
maybe they'll go receiver there at 17.
They could, yeah.
The shame of it is a Loveland to the Bengals at 17 would be awesome, and every Bengals game would be like an over/under of 70.
Oh yeah, it would be high scoring on both sides.
Before we go, great question here. How many Michigan players will get picked before the first OSU player? 3, maybe 4?
I'm not sure who's even at the top of the list for the Buckeyes, because if we're talking about that offensive tackle, yeah. I think there'll be, I would think 3 guys off the board. The wild card will be Kenneth Grant. Will he go off the board before one of the O linemen for the Buckeyes?
Travion Henderson has gotten some first round steam, especially if it is, if we see Genty at 6 Omarion Hampton has gotten, I think most people are confident he'll go in the first round. If he goes earlier than expected, maybe Travion Henderson has a chance to go. I think his ceiling's probably late teens.
Yeah, that'd be a high ceiling.
Yeah.
Or low, whatever.
Yeah. High.
Low pick.
Low pick, high. Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. All right.
Yep.
Well, on that great discussion about, I don't know, syntax or something. Reminder, we've got Sherrone Moore coming up on Wednesday's audio version of In the Trenches. Hope you can join us for that. John, any final thoughts? Who will be Mr. Irrelevant?
No clue. I didn't see that one coming.
I thought you were just be a kicker. Yeah.
Yeah.
What if it's William Wagner?
Relevant. That would be great. I'd be very happy for him to be drafted.
That would be. I think he'll get drafted. I do.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Would love for him to be drafted.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
The always sincere Jon Jansen. We'll be back next week. We will break down the NFL draft, the landing spots for the Wolverines. Not sure exactly the plan but we will have at least one guest. We've got plenty of player interviews to come. Should be a really fun few days, and obviously a great Thursday night on the horizon for Michigan football. All right, for Jon Jansen, I'm Brian Bush. Thanks for joining us here for another Tuesday live stream on Michigan's YouTube channel and at Jon Jansen 77.